Whatever it is, write it down. Put it in your sun visor. So when you're in the car every morning, flop it down. If you get out of a bad sit, flop it down. Whatever you need to do.
Flop it down.
Not flip it down. Flop it down.
Flop it down, man. You know, whatever you need to do.
Hashtag flop it down.
Hello and welcome to episode 23 of the Life Insurance Academy podcast. I'm your host, Austin Lopes-Silvero, and I'm here with Chris Ball, Zach McElwain, and Roger Short. The LIA podcast takes you into the conversations of top producing life insurance agents so that you can level up your business. For episode notes and resources, visit liapodcast.org and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Life Insure Acad. Also, make sure you've subscribed to our text notifications for episode releases and agent resources. All you have to do is send the letters LIA to the number 82149. That's 82149 in the message with the letters LIA. Thanks for joining us today. We are talking about a word that has been huge to our team here. In fact, we built an entire conference around it. It affects everything we do. Can you guys talk about what that word is and why it's so important to us?
Austin, the word is why, and we did build a conference around it. It was called the Why Quest. It was helping people define the reasons they are getting into this business and engaging in this business. And it's an important question, this why question, because I think there's a lot of romance in the idea of doing something entrepreneurial. There's a lot of romance with making a lot of money, but there's just a lot of grittiness to this business. And if you're going to survive, if you're going to thrive.
Did you just say nay?
I did say nay.
Nay. What century was that?
I have 15th.
Nay,
but
I say.
If you're going to thrive, you have to be rooted in something bigger than the adversity that you're facing. So the only thing that can help you weather storms or issues out in the field is a why, is a strong why. And it's one you've taken ownership of. And we felt like this was an important conversation for agents who are listening.
I love that you use the word romance. It's kind of an interesting word, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because people get caught up. They get
Doesn't that what romance
back.
does?
They get
it takes you away.
Smitten. They get enraptured with this word of like, I'm going to do something on my own. I'm going to branch out. I'm no longer going to have a job. I'm not going to work for somebody else. I'm going to work for myself. And I'm going to go create the successful business. And I hear you can make great money in the life insurance business. I'm going to build a life insurance agency and it's going to be so great. I'm going to serve clients. I'm going to make a lot of money. The romance of that idea makes people feel warm and fuzzy on the inside. Right. And what they do not see ever, because of our Instagram world of success and YouTube videos of the highlight reels of the most successful things of people walking across the tarmac out of their Lambo to get in their, jet. These images are planted in front of this idea of entrepreneurship, and they're very far apart.
No, yeah, no joke.
It's not even rooted in reality. That's like the end game. And there's so many posers. There's so many people in life that are not posting the reality of what it takes to become successful. One of the things that we wanted to share today is why maybe each of us got into the business, what sustains us. And as you're listening today, you need to ask yourself that question, because the romance, it's going to be gone very quickly
honeymoon
for you.
Phase.
Oh, yeah. The honeymoon phase is going to be over shortly. As soon as you get the first door shut in your face, or you get the first cancellation, chargeback, you have a bad week, you're investing in leads and you don't have a good return, like everything. The romance is gone. The reality is there, and you're looking in the mirror going, do I even want to go to work today? So you need to get that figured out, because if you don't, it's not going to be a good run for you. And like most things in people's lives, they're short-lived unless they really know why they're doing it and they have a big reason. And you have to keep yourself grounded in that direction.
Would it be safe to say that the most successful agents or people in this industry that have been there for a long period of time also have the strongest whys and motivation attached to their success?
I think so. I
Yeah.
think it's safe to say in any industry, it's interesting to look at Facebook, for example, as an organization. Like their why, or Mark Zuckerberg's why, is to connect every human being. Like that is insane, right? But it's allowed.
I don't know if it started out like that.
No, but that's what it is today.
Yeah.
At
But
first,
these
it was
things
I think,
evolved.
just
He just wanted to meet girls, and he was an introvert, I think, right?
Yeah.
On campus.
And it's grown, and because it's so big, it pulls their organization into a direction. And it's the same thing with Tesla and SpaceX, Virgin Atlantic and all these things. Like, I mean, you would say to a guy who says, my goal is to get to Mars before I die, is just wacko, but it's pulled his organization into something. And I think it's true individually as agents going out and knocking on doors if it's not strong enough.
Our why is to train, inspire, and advance every life insurance agent out there, period.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if that was your why when you first started, though.
No,
right?
this sounded good. After he talked about the Facebook thing,
Yeah.
you wanted something big, just connect everybody.
Yeah.
Well, let's train, inspire, and advance every
Let's
agent
do
out
it,
there.
man.
Yeah. So I think that's probably our why now. It's shifted gears, it evolves. But when people get into this business, for those of us, for those listening right now, they're not part of this organization where they're trying to train, inspire, and advance every agent in life insurance, right?
Like, can I write an app?
Yeah, they're just like, how do I door knocking? What is that?
I think there's levels to it.
yeah,
And that
stages probably more than levels.
Development.
Because, yeah,
Yeah, and it's tied to vision and opportunity, because you can't have a huge why to be able to give beyond yourself or impact multiple lives if you can't, eat more than a Lunchable.
I can eat more than a Lunchable.
But you can't even process that. Like nobody's sitting there trying to eat a Lunchable and saying, how in the world can I train every single life insurance agent out there?
That's true.
You're thinking, how can I advance to a hot double cheeseburger? And it's levels. You got to move up through that, and your vision, your opportunity, and then you grow. Your life grows. Everything changes. Your why might be to get a nice car to impress a girl, and then you buy the really expensive nice car when you probably spent more than you should, and you don't need that at this stage in your life because you don't even own a house, right? And then it's getting a house, it's starting a family, providing for the family, and then it's building wealth, building security, and then beyond that, then it starts to go, well, who other can I impact? Family members? Can I impact people around me, my agents around me? Then can I impact agents globally? It's all levels. It's you have to reach one to get to the next one. It seems that way, or at least in my mind.
Yeah, it's definitely an evolution. There should be an evolution, but it has to start somewhere. You have to start with the why to maintain and build success.
Yeah, I think there's a couple things that you need. Like when we talk about the importance of this why and how it's connected to an agent's success, right? You have to be validated in some way to feel good about what you do. That validation is going to come in several ways. It's going to come monetarily, financially, right? With success, you make money. With more success, you make more money. That's the great thing about this life insurance business, right? You get to determine the ceiling, right? You work really hard, you can make a lot of freaking money in this business. It's phenomenal. You need to find validation financially. You need to find validation from your clients and how they receive you. Or you need to be validated by the people around you. Like there has to be some type of validation for, as you're moving forward. It has to be able to pull you through the struggle weeks. It has to be able to pull you through that. And I think it's important to land on what those value points are for you. Are you more motivated by the financial deposits going into your bank account? Are you more motivated by your family saying, great job, because now you're able to provide things differently for them than you were before? Like things are starting to change at home, not because of the amount of money that's going in, but because what you're doing with it. Or, maybe you've had some significant client impacts where you're like, man, I really feel fulfilled. I've got this benefit that's coming back from this business that's making me feel great about my career. I got into it for the money, but I love these people that I get to serve. And so you're getting personal validation. If you can't figure out one of those things, like success will not come because you can't make it through those initial weeks and months and year. to come out on the other side and develop a cadence to your business that you can now then go to the next level or level up, get past stage 1, get to stage 2. It's like gaming. You just got to work through the levels until you find this extra secret special treasures.
And when you're talking about those stages, like I still remember, and I know every agent probably listening, unless you're extremely new, then you're going through this now, is that pressure of reaching stage 1. And that stage 1 is that first application. And you're doing all this training, you're talking to people, you're going through the home. You had a couple of them that were really close, but you weren't able to close. And you have all this pressure. Most of it's built up on you. Can I do this? Am I ever going to sell one? And then boom, you get your first application. You're the king of the world, regardless if it was whatever size the commission is going to be on that policy. It validates everything instantly. This can be done. It is possible to help somebody with their finances and at the same time make a commission off of that. And then the stage 2 is once you've been in the business a while and you have that confidence where no longer am I ever going to get a policy again, and you have that confidence to know it's a numbers game. If I just go see the people that it's going to happen, that second level of validation comes from when am I going to have that impact where that client hugs me and cries to me and tells me that I'm a blessing sent from God to provide for their family, and they thank me so much. And then to have that, because you can sell policies but not feel validated, not feel appreciative, but to have that, to know you made a true difference, it takes you to a complete another level. Mm-hmm. And then the third level of that is once you're getting those is to see the end result of your efforts. And that is getting a death claim from that name on that beneficiary line or from the daughter or the son or the family member and thanking you for, and you may have never even spoke to this person, but thanking you for putting this plan in place because they don't know what they would have done or how they would have taken care of this without you showing up that day. So like every single one of those levels or stages or whatever you want to call them just validates a little bit more at a deeper level. And it all starts with the pressure of, do I know what I'm doing to sell my first app? And are the clients valuing the services I'm providing? Do they see how I'm caring for them? And then to see the end results. Am I really making a good for this family in decades to come?
The cool thing about this is we've kind of paved the way, plowed the road, beat back the bushes here, created a path,
tilled the soil.
I'm coming up with all these metaphors, but
and you got them all right. I'm so proud of you.
Stirred the pot.
And as we've done that, I didn't take time on the front side of this to figure that out. I didn't. I wish I did, but that's okay. I think for folks maybe who are listening, maybe taking 30 minutes to answer some questions personally. And here's some questions for you to determine what your why is and your level of engagement into this and how seriously you're taking this. One, what are your financial goals? The short term and the long term. What are those financial goals? Those are so important. What are you good at? What do you naturally bring to the table? What are your values? What are just some things that are important to you in your relationships? What are you passionate about? What makes you angry? What makes you happy on both sides of that? Who makes you happy? People, like things like that. And then what do you know how to do that that nobody else knows how to do? Because that could be something that's tangible that you bring into a set that could be in addition to the industry even. So answering those questions, guys, I'm telling you, I wish I took a Sunday afternoon and worked through these things myself as I was going, because I think it will improve your learning curve of all the questions that you have, because it's kind of the engine that's pulling you forward into the future.
Yeah, I think a big question is, what do you want to do with your time? Like, if you didn't have to work, let's say, what do you want to do with your time?
That's a great one.
And if that is traveling, like Roger mentioned, if that's spending time with your family, if that's, I have this side hobby that I'd love to invest more in. Well, if that's that could help uncover your why, because at the end of the day, like, we could give you any opportunity that makes a ton of money, but trying to give you an opportunity that gives you time.
Like sometimes it just needs to be something simple. Like I've known people that got in this business. One of the people that works with us, and a relatively new agent with our organization, got into this business a couple of years ago, and he saw the opportunity almost immediately, and then set a goal to pay off a $60,000 to $70,000 mortgage. Like, how quickly can I pay that off? I'd like to pay that off under 2 years, and in 18 months, he had it paid off. Like, he would have never been able to do that at a regular job because you just make just enough to pay the bills and just enough to have 10% savings. And if you give any money and you give 10%, like then the rest of it is gone. They're like, oh, I got to save some, I got to give some, and then I got to pay the bills. And life happens. The car, needs fixing. The Christmas happens. One of your kids needs something, and But here you can put the throttle down and go after it.
I think this is the part where we kind of erase some romance. Okay, we're going to take the lipstick off the pig a little bit, because why can be that can even have a romance to it, of your big dreams and your visions. But you have to ask yourself a really honest question: what would you do at that time? Right? Like that's kind of what you're saying. Like if I didn't have to work. But here's a question with that, and we're going to build on this question a little bit. Is what are you doing with your time?
Yep.
What are you doing with your time? And man, it may be a good idea to have a little bit of a journal and journal some of your free time. And is that the future that you were fighting for? Because the future starts today.
Yep.
Is that the future that you were fighting for?
I think about that in a slightly different way. When you think about your why and to really know if it's a true or a strong why, you can always ask yourself am I okay? Am I satisfied with not achieving that why or not getting what I want? If that's, to provide my daughter with, all the opportunities and, financial freedom and give her a great quality. Am I okay not doing that? Is it okay not paying my bills? If you're fine with not achieving your why, then you don't have a strong enough why.
Yeah.
Because
you're being disingenuous. You're not being truthful with yourself.
Yeah. And regardless of what it is, whatever that goal is, if you're okay not achieving it, you'll never achieve it. No matter what you do, because when things get tough, you're going to bail out. When you have a slight headache, you're going to stay home.
Sometimes you're going to talk yourself into a headache when you want to stay home.
Right. When you have a good week, you're going to go home instead of making a great week. When you have a bad week, you're going to go home and try to restart next week.
Make it a worse week instead of just being a bad week.
And like having that and knowing that, like that, I mean, if that's what you really want, that's okay. But you probably need a mentor, or you probably need to sit with somebody, because I know deep down in your heart, everybody has a deep, passionate why. If it's to change the way they're perceived in their family, whatever it is, you might need to sit down with somebody and figure out what that truly is and how important that really is to you, because that's the only fuel that's going to pull you through when things get tough.
This became a reality to me. And I mean, we've had these conversations where, the truth is, this is a very honest conversation here, like where we've had these conversations with agents who repeatedly had the same why over and over.
At least they tell us,
right? Yeah,
that this is their why,
and this
is my goal.
It's never changed, and they've never taken steps to do it. But
they're
they keep
okay
repeating
with it
that
not
it's their
happening.
goal, but they don't actually take the actions to realize it.
And I think what happens internally, and we know this is true, this is science, is when you have a desire to do something and you build up the intent to do something, chemically we reward ourselves for that intent. And it feels good. It feels good to want to start to do something to make a change, whether it's working out or vocationally, whatever it is. And then we're like, man, you know what? I'm going to start tomorrow. I'm going to start tomorrow.
I'm going to quit smoking, and I'm starting after this pack.
The 31st or
after this pack.
After this pack. And that's when the change is going to begin, and our chemicals in our body, for whatever reason, reward us for
because
the
of our
intent.
intention. Yeah.
And here's the tricky part into it. it almost works like an inoculation to your why. Like you start to develop an immunity to
Counterproductive.
yes, yeah.
To not take action on your intention.
It continues to happen. It just continues to happen.
It's like building up, it's like taking antibodies for something too much. You know what I mean?
It's a vaccine against success.
Yeah, but then, you know, your body becomes immune to being able to fight off certain things. It's,
Yeah.
You know, like
You're stuck in this cycle.
Yeah, like,
It's awful.
and if you're not with an organization and you're out there on your own solo, one of the things that you are rarely getting is validation from a community
Right.
that you're running with. And so you have to find the personal validation from serving clients and what you're doing there. So it has to come from the actual act of doing something nice for someone else or making a difference in their lives. And in a lot of cases, because of the nature of the business we're in, we're doing life insurance benefits, you know, we don't see the other side of that until years later someone passes away, there's a tragedy, and then you see the big financial benefit to that family of something you did 5 years ago. So to pull you through some of those first year, that 6 months, year, 2 years, sometimes it's very difficult because you don't necessarily have a lot of that personal validation except for the hugs, you know, that you may learn to get on the way out the door, or can you stay for dinner, or I really appreciate what you did, you really helped me. If you don't have a community that's validating you because of your success and you can't find it there, it's going to be hard pressed for you to stay through some of the challenges. If you better be making a dang lot of money coming out of the gate, because then the only other thing left is what's going into my bank account and what can I do with it? You know, can I buy a boat? Can I buy a new car? You know, can I buy new black rims for my car, Zach? Right? Like there's certain things that bring people value, and you've got to find it somewhere, or else you end up just drifting. And once you start to drift in this business, you're not directing the ship, and you're going to end up off the boat. It's not a fun place to be.
With community, though, you get encouragement, but you also do get accountability. And that's a huge part of knowing your why. Is it's not just having a why for yourself, because like you all said, you can get caught in the romance of the why. You can reward yourself for having a why. But then if no one else knows it, what does it matter?
Dude, you are on point. One of my mentors when I was in youth ministry, and this just always resonated in my head, was say what you see, so you see what you say. Say what you see, so you see what you say. And there were two parts to it. One was an internal part where you're speaking it into existence, and it's always in the forefront of who you are and how you function. And then on the other part of it, it's speaking it to your community. And you know, we aren't just talking to new agents. We're talking to people who run organizations. And there's this thing that happens in organizations called mission drift, where they lose focus of the things that are moving them in a certain direction and the things they were passionate about because of the day-to-day things they were experiencing that took them off course. And this mission drift, it can erode direction. So being able to speak it to your group, being able to hold you accountable to it, but also to hold each other accountable to it, as you know, if you have people who are along your journey with you. But yeah, that accountability to yourself. I mean, I don't think there are enough spouses who have this conversation.
Yeah.
There aren't, and I think, and because of that, there can be some tension in some marriages because of they're moving in different directions. You know, like they're not on the same page on this. And this should be talked about, because then there's accountability together as a family of what you're trying to accomplish. So that is a big word, man, accountability.
It's funny because one of the things that a lot of people get that want out of this is they like the entrepreneur mindset. They like the entrepreneur opportunity to go out and create something for themselves that, you know, removes the ceiling, you know, on income opportunities and lifestyle opportunities. But the thing that often happens with that is separation. It's separation from a community. And it doesn't have to be that way, right? You can have community and still have that same opportunity. And if you're trying to figure out and navigate some of those things, I would say that even just over this last year, one of the value points I realized that our organization brings to a lot of people is just mentoring on business principles, like on life, like on business setup 101. Like, it's boring stuff. It's stuff that I take for granted now.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even, sometimes
This is
I don't
how
even.
we write an agreement.
We move one piece of paper to the other side of the desk.
So, like, sometimes I don't even realize there's a value in it, but it's a
Right.
tremendous value. And if you're not connected to an organization that you can have those conversations with people who are like-minded, who have maybe gone down the road before you or have experienced some of the things that you're trying to accomplish, that you can bounce ideas off, you drift. And you don't know you're drifting.
That's the scariest part.
You don't know you're drifting. Austin, you're aligned
It's like the
with
riptide effect.
Yeah, you're aligned with entrepreneur groups, startup groups, things like that. How important is the regular meeting and communication within those groups to keep the mission moving forward?
It's like if you don't, you think you're the only one experiencing that issue.
Exactly. You know, why is this only happening to me? Everybody else in this insurance world seems to be having success. I don't know why I can't have it. When in fact, almost everybody's going through some version of that. Some people have great answers to it. You've just never tapped into it because you're trying to do it on your own. So one of the blessings of chasing this type of career and opportunity is that you are entrepreneurial. You know, you have this entrepreneurial mindset. One of the downsides of that is the entrepreneurial mindset tends to isolate to try to figure out how to do it themselves. And it doesn't have to be that way. Align yourself with an organization that brings value to bigger things in life.
Here's the trick of this business that people aren't aware of. This is the secret sauce here, okay? Is when you're getting into this, you're looking at sales, but you cannot do this business and be successful without growing. It's not possible. So you have to grow in your personal relationships. You have to grow. You have to look in the mirror and make adjustments every day. And each of us have had that journey. You know, my mindset about finances, about money has changed. My and my why in relation to that has changed. For me at the start of this, I've always been someone who, well, not always. I mean, I've gone through my journey. I mean, you wouldn't even want to talk to me as a junior higher or high schooler. Oh my gosh, right? Like my teachers had pulled one side of their hair out dealing with me as a kid. But as I started to straighten out my trajectory a little bit, I wanted to be a difference maker. And that was a clear calling in my life to be that type of person. And I wasn't super focused on the money side. So it's funny how people will enter this at different levels, because there will be people who will join this on the money side, but they won't. I mean, the difference maker part of it may not be on their radar yet.
Yeah.
But you can't interact with people and talk about passing and leaving legacies and things like that without it striking a nerve. It should. It really should. So the development of my why changed. I wanted to be an impact maker. I wanted to make a difference in people's lives. I was really attracted to that. I wanted to help develop people and help them see their own potential, like all those pieces. But then there was a finance side to it where I saw, holy moly, I can provide something for my kids that I never had. Mm-hmm. Wow. Like there's something there to that, and there's nothing wrong with it. Like that's a really cool thing. So that was this is development. This is development. The why will be massaged. It will be changed. So if you're sitting and you're listening and you're engaged in this podcast, you probably need to start clarifying your why a little bit.
I think for me, I just never worked well for a long period of time under someone else if I didn't always align with their vision or their value points. So for me, values, the character of the business that we were in, or the character of the organization, the value points of the organization. If I didn't align with it, I push back. Like in my nature, it is to push back, and sometimes that can be passive aggressive. in its nature, and I found myself just being discontented. Is that the right word? And I just wasn't happy in those situations. I wanted to make a lot of money. I wanted to be successful. I knew I had the capacity to do that, and so I was always looking for opportunities to do that. But then the values also had to line up, so it wasn't just about the money for me. And if people are listening and you're just getting in this for the money, like that will only last so long. It only lasts so long, and then you see everything that's wrong with it or how hard it is, and then you look for something easier to make money. And you never actually value the human lives on the other side of what it is that you're doing. But when you're willing to engage in the bigger picture of finance and impact, on everyone's life, your family, the families you serve, and what that's going to do for your life over the long term, it really starts to form a picture of success that you can see. So for me, I wanted to be able to be in charge of my own destiny, so to speak, and make as much money as I wanted to by putting in as much effort. And so people like the idea of that. Well, when you do that, if you remove the ceiling, we've said it before on this podcast, if you remove the ceiling on opportunity, you're also removing the floor. So the security kind of goes away from that job, that secure paycheck. And so people kind of like want to keep their foot on the dock because it's secure there. They don't want to actually just push off and get onto the sailboard because they might end up falling in the water. And so the security of the dock just holds them there. And so many people are just stuck there in life for so long. And I was willing to take that risk to push off because I trusted myself enough to figure if I fall off, I can get up and get on the board again, and I can certainly paddle ashore. Like, it's not going to be that bad. And I'll figure this out because you see some people out there and they're sailing, on these windsurf. They're enjoying themselves. You see people parachuting. You see people and how do they get from like jumping off walking, staying on stable ground to people who want to jump off a mountain in one of those squirrel suits and just fly? It's just like there's a big departure between those two things, and you got to be willing to take those steps. And I was a person who was willing to take some steps to get into a position where I could have more of a limitless, opportunity. One of my goals, like when I think about how I want to live out my life, like I've lived in the same house for 16 years. Like we talk about from time to time, should we buy a new house? Should we move? As our kids are getting older, is now the time? I don't know. At some point when everyone's gone and be like, we're in a pretty big house and there's just the two of us left. Like, what are we doing now? Like, one of my largest, and for anyone who knows me, is traveling and creating experiences for the people that I love. That's because people remember experiences. They remember moments when, like, we've all been on trips together. Actually, all of us. You've been on trips with me, Austin, right? Yep. One of the first trips were you ever in Mexico before you went on that trip with us?
No.
Was that a memorable experience that you'll never forget?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Now, I wasn't thinking about all that. I want to create this unbelievable experience for Austin, but I love being able to have you there. But that was an experience that you'll always remember. I always go back to the first time Chris and I were on a trip together, and I know the sunglasses that he had on. They were his wife's sunglasses, and we were drinking Bahama Mamas, and Coco Locos. And,
that's right.
And he, halfway through the first drink, he's like, "My face is numb." These are experiences that happened, almost 10 years ago.
Yeah,
I will never forget them. It allows you to create experiences. So for me, I like being with family, I like being with friends, and I like creating experiences to go new places, to see new things, to experience food, to experience different cultures. Like, I've been driving the same car for 8 years. It's a nice car, but it's 8 years old. I haven't had a payment on it in years, right? But like, just to go out and buy a new car, I would rather go visit someplace new that I've never experienced and take as many people with me as I could so they can experience that too.
He's going to be on that SpaceX, dude. No question.
You have to determine what the things are that bring you joy in your life, that are important to you, so you can use them as fuel to move through the grittiness and the grind of figuring out how to make success here. Success is massively available here. But if you don't know your why, if you don't have that figured out, it can derail you and you can feel alone and adrift.
You need to remind yourself of that as well. Like, when you get in the day-to-day or good days, bad days, rainy days, it doesn't matter. But, I tell a lot of agents who I talk to, if this is your why and this is what's really important to you, remind yourself of it and write it down. Take a picture of it. Whatever it is that you want, is it an item? Is it a family? Is it a place that you want to take your family? Is it an experience? Whatever it is, write it down. Put it in your sun visor. So when you're in the car every morning, flop it down. If you get out of a bad sit, flop it down. Whatever you need to do.
Flop it down.
Not flip it down. Flop it down.
Flop it down, man. Whatever you need to do.
Hashtag flop it down.
Record yourself on your phone saying this is what you want, like an affirmation to yourself. Play that recording. Whatever you need to do to get it back in front of you, remind you, because that's deepest in your heart. But a lot of times, the crap that we deal with every day just adds layers on top of that, and we have to uncover that and remind ourselves. And that's what's going to give us our motivation. That's what's going to put a smile back on our face and go out and hustle, because it's the inches. So success is the sum of small efforts repeated day in and day out, by Robert Collier. And the great thing about that is that's not sexy. That's not the makeup on the pig, but that's where it comes. If your goal is to be the next Instagram influencer, just getting on planes to fly to bigger planes, to get on a boat, to get on a bigger boat, whatever you want to do, that's great. But that grind is where it's at. That grind is that not exciting, nobody's watching you, in your beat up car, driving, trying to make ends meet, eating your Lunchable, knocking on your next door. That's the process. That's the thing you will look back on years down the road and say, man, those times were fun. This is how we got here. This is what we had to do to sacrifice. No matter who it is that you look up to, they all have had that moment. That's what we all have in common. But what the difference is, what makes them stand out, is they've always maintained that motivation. They've always had that why in front of them. And when things got tough, they didn't go home early. They pushed through. They kept going, because at the end of it all, that why was more important. When they asked themselves, am I okay? Am I okay with not achieving this why? Am I okay with not accomplishing my goals? Their answer was, heck no. Heck no. And that's what pushed them through, and that's the difference. We all have that same opportunity, and we all have that decision or choice. That choice isn't, do I want to be successful? Do I want to take my family on 10 vacations a year? That's not the decision. The decision is, what do I do today when I don't feel good?
The adversity side of this, we were talking before the podcast. There's a show that I watch. It's called Alone, and it's these survivalists, and they drop these people off independently. There's typically 10 to 12 people, and the winner is the person who lasted the longest in the middle of nowhere. They get like a saw and
doesn't die.
Yeah, and doesn't die. I mean, it's dangerous stuff. They get a tarp and maybe a saw.
Where did you say this was?
Oh, it was in the Arctic last season. Yeah, so they're building these little cabins and hunting rabbits, squirrel, moose, and fishing, and it's interesting to hear them talk. And these are survivalists. This isn't like me. Can you imagine me out there? Oh my gosh, man. It would be fun to watch for the first 2 days.
You'd win.
Then there'd be a fetal
just
position
be sad
and crying
after that.
But it was interesting to watch this because they're gung-ho, they're fired up. They have incredible skill sets.
What's the reward?
$500,000
To the winner.
to the one.
Everybody
who lasts.
else, what do they get?
Nothing.
Zero.
And they aren't aware of who's in the competition throughout the competition.
They know how many.
They know how many, but they don't know who's dropped out. So they could be in day 30 and believe that everybody's there.
So do they have to hit a certain number of days, or they just have to last longer than everyone else?
They have to outlast everybody else.
Is there a minimum number of days to qualify?
No. It's
So like everybody could have dropped out on day 35 and some poor sap is in his 90th day and he's going,
Oh no! If everybody dropped out at day 35, they fly in and let that person know that they won.
Okay,
Yeah, that'd be torture.
Yeah. So, but it's
you don't know where the finish line is.
You don't, and
Your motivation better be big.
that's right.
Your why's got to be huge.
Interesting to see these folks process that. So at the beginning, they're gung ho. I'm going to do this. This is my journey. This is my goal. And it's always, I'm going to do this for my family to better their lives, right? Then they get into it and they start to feel these hunger pains. And then it's, and this is the other thing. This is an interesting part of this is when they've achieved certain goals, like building their shelter, their motivation changes. Like they start to lose focus. Like they don't have anything to do. The people who last the longest have found little tasks to keep engaged in the process throughout this whole thing, which is fascinating to me. But
they got to have something that keeps them moving forward, or else they just start to
little
think.
Tiny things like building a net for fishing. Yeah, keep
their brain starts to drift.
Yeah. And so, but the people who start to wind down, hunger does crazy things, isolation does crazy things to you. But as you start to see these people wind down, their why starts to become their excuse. They're in day 32. They probably only need 10 more days. Probably. They don't know for sure, but in most cases, they've seen the show long enough that it typically goes to maybe 50, 60 days, something like that. So they're really close. They're 30 days in, 40 days in, 50 days in, and they start to say things and convince themselves, well, I'm missing out on my kids right now and what's going on in their lives, and I need to tap out. I need to go home because I miss them so much. The why of improving their life was what brought them out here in the first place, and now it's a regret. And dude, I see that with agents. With agents, and we're not talking 30 days. We're talking 3 days in the field, 2 days in the field, like
3 weeks in, 4 days.
I was
like
doing
12
this.
days in.
We've actually had that happen to a guy on his first day.
Yeah. I was doing this for them. So, these are for me, these are kind of triggers of red. I'd say maybe a yellow light. Like you need to pay attention to this. Like if you're experiencing some of these things, is your why, or is it someone else's why? Did somebody say you should have a why? So you wrote it down and said, this is my why.
Is your why to impress somebody else?
Yeah. That's not sustainable.
My wife will love me if I tell her this is my why.
Right. It needs to be something that you are care about and passionate about. Is it getting forgotten in the day to day? Like you aren't keeping little daily tasks that are attached to what you're passionate about. Do you have the capacity? That's a tough conversation. Do you have the capacity to bring this into fruition? Do you have the work ethic? To make it happen? Are you accountable to yourself, and are you accountable to other people? But man, those parallels were fascinating to me on watching these people get in their own heads and turn their why into the reason why they weren't doing it anymore. I mean, this one girl she was a day away, and shut down. And the other guy was thinking the same thing. He just outlasted her one more day. And I think a lot of agents are in that spot where you are a day away from turning your dreams into reality. Just keep going.
It breaks all the way down to daily activities. It's when you want to bail out after a bad day, you got to tell yourself one more phone call, one more door knock, one more sit. That's all I'm looking for. Once I get one more sit, then I will finish. And so if you just keep telling yourself, because there's in that one more mentality, just one more, that keeps you moving forward. That's the net that I'm tying together. That's the fire that I'm trying to figure out how to build.
Yeah.
That's the new shelter that I'm developing, because the old one is not going to sustain when the weather changes, or when the wind comes from the east. It doesn't protect me, and so I've got to build a new one. That one more mentality makes all the difference in the world. It's that moment when things are a struggle. During the pandemic, the height of the pandemic, when we didn't know if there was going to be an end in sight. And I'm in here at 8:30 at night, and I'm like, I'm going to make one more phone call. Like in those moments, or you're on the road and you're 3 hours away from home, and it's Wednesday night and you've not had a good week, and you're like, do I stay one more night to finish up the rest of these leads? Am I going to call the rest of these today, or am I going to bail out? It's in those moments you have to remember your why. You have to remember the thing that brings you the most joy, the thing that's going to bring you the most validation. And there's really only two, in my opinion, there's really only two things that can pull you through that. Number one is you have to know what it is that you're working for and be reminded of that. And secondly, you need to have validation and accountability from an organization that also understands your industry. It just can't be your family, because they don't always get it. They don't always get it. And if you're tied to a mentor group, if you're tied to an organization, an IMO group, if you're tied to other agents, there's Facebook groups, there are communities that you can be part of. If you're listening to this podcast, I hope that you feel like you're a part of our community. We want you to be. We want you to feel like you're welcome here every week to join us and listen in and to comment and ask questions like Valerie did last week. We want to be able to be that community. You'll get validation from that community, and they will remind you of why you're doing this and pull you through those challenging times. If you keep those things at the forefront of your mind, you can pretty much endure anything and go one more day, win the 500,000.
That's right.
Do one more knock and write that one app that changes your week. Stay one more day, close those other 5 more leads. That one more approach can pull you through so much.
I mean, one more knock every day will get you to 500,000.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
Yeah.
Is there a time in the field where you all can remember your why pulled you through, like a sit, a client, a day?
I will say it's hard to remember specifics for me, but I mean I've had those days or weeks where, man, I'll tell you, there's nothing worse when it's raining, and you can't get in a door for whatever reason.
And you get back in your car, and you're soaking wet.
Right. Yeah. Weather, I guess a trigger for me is a weather thing.
Or discomfort.
Discomfort. Yeah. It's a discomfort,
You wouldn't do well in the Arctic.
I wouldn't. Actually, I probably do better than in a sunny place. I'm 30% snowman. A lot of people don't know that. So I sweat a lot in the heat, but
oh my gosh,
got me some scholarships. It did. You can take that out if you want. But those weather factors, it's any moment you close your car door and you're like, what in the world, And there's plenty of those. There's plenty of those. And there are some engaging, and this is something I'm not super comfortable with, talking about, but there are these engaging pieces where I have mental triggers, emotional and mental triggers. There are times I've had sits and I've been angry when I've got back to my car. And my initial reaction, and this is so goofy, I thought to myself, well, Mr. Jones, I'm going to order 50 pizzas for your house. And then what are you going to do? But I didn't do it. I didn't do it, which is a weird thing to think. But
you rewarded yourself on intention, didn't you?
Yes. But I forced myself, and this isn't all the time, every once in a while, I've forced myself to remember that I'm a difference maker, and I might leave a note with a gift card or something that says, it seems like you're having a bad day. I hope your day goes better. Something like that.
Domino's gift card?
Yeah, like a Domino's gift card. Or in moments where I want to live up to that. I just want to live up to that. And there are moments where I've brought balloons or a card to somebody. And I know people do this all the time. They do it all the time, but it's rooted in the why, that this is beyond a door knock and just selling insurance. These are people that we're talking to, and they have bad days too, So I think that's helpful for me. It's a yellow light. I'm in the danger zone here. I got to pull this hard in the opposite direction.
Yep.
So that helps me.
You gotta own some stories. You gotta lean on some things that you've done for people where they've really appreciated what you've done. And then when you come up against one of those people who doesn't, just remind yourself of the family that you did bless. I'm not sure. I think we may have talked about this one client on. I know I've written a blog article. There's just so many. But this one client, her name's Jerry, and I remember sitting in a funeral home with Jerry and her friend, her boyfriend, I guess it was, and she was a senior. Her husband had died a few years ago, and her boyfriend's spouse had died a few years ago, and they were dating. But she had lost her daughter, who was just 50 years old, and I was there 2 years before, and I wrote policies for Jerry, and while I was there, her daughter came in the home, challenged me while I was there, and asked her mom if she wanted me to kick me out, and it was an interesting banter, and I developed a relationship with them both. I watched Jerry's mom, older mom, who was living with them, pass away in that period of time, and then tragically, over Christmas one year, I got a phone call saying they needed a death claim on the life of the daughter, Linda, and I was shocked because Linda, was the youngest. She wasn't supposed to die. And I remember being in that funeral home, and Jerry did not know that Linda took out extra insurance, that if anything ever happened to her, that mom could move into her home and be mortgage free and not have a house payment anymore, but also had enough to pay for the funeral. And I sat there, and Jerry was so concerned that the death benefit was going to pay, because she didn't know how to pay for the funeral, which was going to be just over $10,000. And I assured her everything was going to be fine. I sat there with her, and when I explained to her that Linda actually took out an additional $40,000 in coverage to pay the rest of her mortgage, she just wept. And she put her head on my shoulder, and the tears, I can still feel the tears through my shirt onto my shoulder. Like I felt the wetness. Like I'll never forget that moment, because those are like the real things of what we do. There's blessing in the tragedy on the other side of that. It wasn't supposed to be like that, but that's what insurance is for. And when you're leaning into something and you have that to pull on, and you come up against a person who is just a butt to you, or the family who just, you do everything the way you're supposed to do, and they don't appreciate it or respect it, or you have that charge back or you have a bad week, or you're having a tough grind, or while you're trying to do the thing that you're due and things are supposed to go your way, you blow out a tire, then you just fix the other tires, and you lose a motor in your car. It's something. It's just like, why are these things happening? If you can pull on those moments and the validation from blessing clients, it makes all the difference in the world. And please know, we are in one of the most honorable professions. If you're wondering whether you should stay in this business, and you're listening to this podcast and you might feel like you're on the way out, you're in one of the most honorable, upstanding professions ever. Treat it well, treat your clients well, and they will treat you well and help you build a career, a lifetime of blessing, a lifetime of income without a ceiling that you can be proud of when you look back. And please know that from someone else who's been in the industry for so many years, and the organization and the agents that we've helped have helped thousands and thousands and thousands of families. And the blessings that has been, to me, the serendipity of the things that you weren't expecting to be a blessing that now is amazing. And sometimes you have to go through it all to see it from the other side when you look back. So be proud of what you do. Know your why, and get around some people who hold you accountable, and you'll get through those things.
Sometimes it can be difficult when you're brand new and you don't have those stories, or you haven't been in the business long enough to have those death claims. Like for me, one of the main things that kept me going was every Monday morning reminding myself, what am I going to do? Pack my stuff, get in the car, and go. Not that I wanted to, because everybody wants to sleep in. Everybody, well, I own my own business. I'm a big business owner. I can, I'm my own agent, I'm 1099, or, and you feel all great about it. But then you just lay in bed for a few hours, or flip through TV, or I'll get started on Tuesday, whatever it is. And, for me, like, I didn't want that. I didn't want to have to battle that. So it was a constant reminder for me. Every day throughout the week, that's why I always say, like, really make sure you have that strong why. Make sure it's on your visor or somewhere that you can access it, however often you need to access it. That might be different for everybody. But for me, it was always sharp. It was always a reason. And I broke it down to have the exact number of production that I needed for that. So if it was raining, if it was snowing, if my car's stuck, if I'm battling all those things that happen to all of us, getting bit by a dog, like we all, like this is the life of an insurance agent. Like, but the difference is I remind myself why I'm out here and who I'm out here for. And I remind myself, however I need to do that. Listen to those positive affirmations that I've recorded myself. Look at those pictures. Look at the writing I wrote down. Whatever you need to do. And then simple, don't give up. You can't quit. But for me, it started on Monday morning. Once my week was started, I was fine. Like, I knew I was going to be out there and I was going to give everything I got, but I had to get going. That was one of my biggest barriers. Also, at the end of the week, when you've had a good week, you never know if next week your car's going to blow up. You never know if you're going to be sick for 2 weeks after that. You never know if something is going to happen that's going to prevent you from working. So I never quit. I always, at least this was my number. and I would go as hard as I can, as if I had a quote normal regular job where I had certain number of days and hours to work. I would go above and beyond because you never know when the weeks are going to fall below your number. And if that why is that important to you, then that's what's going to give you that motivation after you've hit your weekly numbers. Or if it's raining and you're only at 2,000, but you need to be at 5, okay? Or everybody else is going home and you don't want to spend the extra $75 or $100 on that extra night in the hotel by yourself. Well, that's nothing if you're writing one more app. That's going to more than pay for itself. But just because somebody's going home, just because somebody doesn't work in the rain, just because somebody else's why may be different than yours, that's not going to affect my why and my motivation. Yes, it makes it easier to be there with people in a group and doing this together, but it's not going to determine if I'm going to achieve my why or not. And that's easy to do if it's not on your mind. So have to have it on your mind at all times.
Well, that's a wrap for today's episode. We hope that you'll take some time today or this week and sit down and define your why. Then share it with someone, your upline, a mentor, social media, or even us. Our team would love to hear your why and how we can best support you. All you have to do is go to liapodcast.org/EP23. That's liapodcast.org/EP23. And there'll be a form there where you can put in your why and let us know how we can support you. As always, thanks so much for listening to the Life Insurance Academy podcast. If you enjoyed this podcast, make sure to subscribe wherever you're listening, rate us 5 stars, and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Life Insure Acad. The Life Insurance Academy podcast is hosted, edited, and mixed by me, Austin Lopes-Olvera. This episode was produced by Chris Ball and myself. Our theme song is by Flashing Lights. We'll see you on another episode. Until then, stay safe and go be a difference maker.